All right. So why? Why social theories? Why do we need to worry about this? And I will tell you honestly, this is usually where students will have trouble. They will have a difficult time with social theories because they are different. But gosh, they're so important. They're so important, and there's lots of companies now that use these social theories. They finally learned a lot from them. So let's get into the technology acceptance model. Now, this is a smaller theory. This one is not huge like the next one is. And you want to learn the components of this. But again, we are talking about the technology acceptance model, which is TAM, T-A-M, technology acceptance model. But we're starting with this one called TRA, which is the theory of reasoned action. So it's a theory of how somebody goes through this reasoning and then acts. That's basically what that means. And back in 1976, really what they were trying to do is figure out, why do people do things that are just antisocial? Why does a person go out and just kill somebody? Most of us just don't understand why that would happen, even though lots of movies try to put you in a situation where you're deciding if it happens. But why would that happen? Most of us just don't do that. And so they started looking at, what are the components that make this up? Now, you start to look at some of this and you're like, yeah, obviously that's the case, right? So I tell students, my mother could have told you this, right? She wouldn't have used these terms. She wouldn't have broken it down this way. But basically, if you're going to think about something long enough, then you're going to do it. That's mainly what it is. And everybody in the world knows that. If you just sit around thinking about what you want to do, then you're going to act on that. That's usually what happens. All right, so let's break it down to what they have. So the authors right here, they identify three things that describe a behavior. There is the attitude. What's your attitude about that behavior? So let's go ahead and use the severe attitude of killing. My attitude towards that, and most people's attitude, is no. That's not a good thing. That's not something I want to take part in and do. That's the attitude. What's the subjective norm? Now, subjective norm basically just means what normally happens, right? What is the norm for it? Well, people don't kill others. That's the norm. But there's a portion of it that's subjective. It's subjective to the society you live in, to how you were raised, to lots of different things, right? And then there's the behavioral intention. In other words, what is my intent for that behavior? Is that something that I am going to do? So my attitude towards people murdering others or actually committing that act is no way. That's my attitude. The subjective norm or the social aspect is no way, you don't do that. That's what it is. And then my behavioral intention is no way, I don't plan on ever doing that behavior. My intention is not going to happen. So you look at this little graph, and basically what you have is you've got your attitude towards the behavior, and that's from a person's belief and everything else. Their attitude comes from that belief, how you're raised and so on. And then you've got subjective norms, and that's the person's beliefs about what other people think in society. And then what's the relative importance of these? In other words, do you place more value on what society says or on what you say? And for a lot of people, it's usually fairly normal, right? Those are both kind of equal. But some people really, whatever society says is what they do. And for other people, it's like, I'm never going to do what society says. I'm going to do my own thing. That's what forms your intention. What is my intent to do that? And then there's the actual behavior. So again, basically they're trying to figure out, why do people do what they do? Well, they have an attitude about what that is, whatever it is. Like, let's use masks, right? That's a big thing. Your attitude about whether or not that actually helps, so that is formed from your own belief, but it's also formed from, what is society doing? If everybody in society is doing it, then you're going to do it too, that kind of thing. And that informs your or makes your intention. My intention is to go ahead and wear masks all the time. And then you actually have the behavior of wearing masks. So we're not really concerned about this. It's not like a psychology thing. I would read this, honestly, because I describe it a little differently here, and it's good to hear it different ways. But in 1986, this guy named Davis, he developed something based off of TRA, which is TAM, Technology Acceptance Model, and he changed it just a little bit. Now, why he did this is the big thing, is that historically at that time, computers are sweeping through society, and businesses and organizations are spending millions and billions of dollars on these computers. And a lot of them are struggling. So they get the computers and then the people won't use the computers. And so he was like, isn't it be just a super thing, or wouldn't it be a super thing if we just had a way that we could kind of ask people some questions and find out whether or not they were going to use these? Could we do that? Yeah, we could. And in his research, he basically found out that when you're dealing with computers, there's a very important thing that affects your attitude, two important things that affect your attitude towards using something. Whether or not you perceive it to be useful, and whether or not you feel it's easy to use. So that's perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. In other words, you perceive it to be useful, you perceive it to be easy, therefore your attitude towards it will be positive. You perceive it to be very difficult but useful, that changes what you may do, right? And you will find that to be true, that people will say, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, or I don't like this technology, or I don't like that technology. And that's because either they don't see that it's going to actually be any more useful than what they're doing, or they don't think it's going to be easy to actually learn it. So and they don't say those reasons. Let me just put that out there. They don't say, well, I don't think it's going to be easy to learn it, so I don't want to do it, because that would make us weak in our society, right? So they don't say that. They go, that's stupid. That's stupid. I don't like that company. That company is stupid. I don't like how they do things. When really what's behind it is they don't think it'll be easy to deal with, right? So TAM's been used in a lot of different studies, probably much more than 700 by now. And those studies basically are designed to just ask employees questions. For instance, if we take that tablet situation, if we were going to switch over and say, we'll give you a desktop PC and we'll give you an iPad, those are two different things, right? Windows and iPads, that's different. And so we're going to spend millions of dollars on this project because we're a big company. So let's go and ask people first and find out if they think it's going to be easy for them to do, if they think it's going to be useful for them to do. So you're just getting an idea of how they're thinking. If you get enough people that say, yeah, I think those will be pretty useful, and I don't think they'll be too difficult to figure out, then you can go out and spend the millions of dollars, and you know that a bunch of people are going to start using it immediately. You're not going to struggle with it. So this is the chart, right? That's my thing that just got done from my other video. So you got your external variables, the outside influences, we'll get to that later, that affect whether or not you think is useful or easy use. Just as an example, that's seeing somebody use it, right? And they go, oh no, this is so useful. This is so useful. It's not too bad to learn, right? That's the thing. And then that forms their attitude towards using. And that attitude towards using then influences their behavioral intention to use it. So my attitude is formed that it's going to be pretty easy and that it's going to be pretty useful. So I think I'll use it when you give me one. I think I'll give that a shot. Right? That's how TAM works. That is basically the whole situation that a person goes through. And when we do a look at the other one, you will see these concepts in that other theory. So this is a process just for a person. And you can examine that. As a matter of fact, in class, I talked to people and asked them, I said, why do you use Chrome? I didn't get any good answers. Nobody actually answered me, I use it because of this solid reason. Now, why did I ask them that? Well, almost everybody uses Chrome. I told them, as soon as students come into my 103 class and they have to use the internet, they load up Chrome, right? That's what they use. So why? Why did you make that choice to use Chrome, right? And really what they find is that there's a social portion of this, the subjective norm, that basically Chrome got to the point where everybody was using it, and that's why they use it. They can't say, I use it because it offers me this awesome thing, or it is the lightest and fastest, or anything like that. They just use it because that's what society uses, right? There's that subjective norm. So if I said to them, and I did, I said, well, why don't you use the new Microsoft Edge? And somebody said, oh, well, that's just Internet Explorer that's, been rebranded. And I'm like, actually, the new Edge is Chrome rebranded. Nobody would use Edge. And so Microsoft just said, well, we're just going to base it off of Chrome because Google wanted to get on the hype of having this open system that people can contribute to. And so Microsoft can just take Chrome's core, Chromium, and then make a browser out of it, and they're compatible with it. If you're not going to use our product, then just use this one that's based off of what you already use, right? And of course, I don't know if anybody in class actually knew that that's what the new version was. And, then nobody could say why they wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't you switch to it? I said, well, ease of use is no difference. Sorry, ease of use is no difference. It's Chrome. It's basically the same thing. However, I do find it more useful to use the new Edge. Why? Well, because any browser, something else we talked about, any program, like if you look at Internet Explorer in its past, it was very streamlined and it did what it did and it did it well. And then people said, well, we want this and we want this and we want this and we want this and we want this. And soon Internet Explorer is this massive, massive thing. And then Chrome comes out, right? Google brings out Chrome and they go, oh, it's small and light. It'll do everything you want. And they get enough people because they had nobody using it, right? And so then they get enough people using it and then it grows and then it grows and then it grows. And so Chrome, honestly, I don't use just because it really burns your battery power. It's sitting there using processor power like you wouldn't believe. And that's because, well, it's doing so much more than it used to do. And on top of it, Google doesn't need to pay attention to that, right? And until another browser comes in and starts stripping away their users and pulling them away from them, they don't need to pay attention to that. They can do whatever the crap they want. Same thing that Microsoft did, no different. Every company behaves that way. And so my perceived usefulness of using Edge is higher than my perceived usefulness of using Chrome because I'm getting the exact same thing, but I'm getting it in a faster, lighter, more efficient way. As a matter of fact, I usually use this, and this is Opera GX. And Opera GX is made for gaming, basically, and it's a really super light web browser, and I haven't had any trouble with it. And so the honest truth is I usually use Opera GX, and I haven't really seen any difference with any of the browsers over the past 5 years. There hasn't been any reason to not just skip around. I do find Firefox the most compatible, so I usually have this one installed. Because it's like the world compatibility. It'll just work with anything. But I rarely ever start it up and use it. But my decisions basically are following this pattern, and so is everybody else's. The one thing that this right is not talking about is those subjective norms. The fact that, I had some people in class that they were kind of upset at the fact that basically I pointed out to them, you just use Chrome because somebody else has used it. That's just part of your subjective norm. You're being influenced by society. That why wouldn't you use Chrome, right? Because Edge is not cool. That's a social thing. That's not a technology thing. And so that's the first one. That's TAM, Technology Acceptance Model. What you need to know. about it is really you need to know the foundations of TRA, and then you need to know the foundations of TAM, and there will be a study guide. Let me go over and show you that. So jump to home here. That always takes it a minute to get there. Always takes 2 clicks. I don't know why. So anyway, come on. There we go. So you'll have a social behavior reflection. You'll have a TAM study guide that you can go ahead and take over and over again to prep for your social theories test. And I will tell you that I have a lot of people that do poorly on this test. And that tells me they just don't study hard enough. I mean, I even give you a study guide on this one because I know that this stuff is like weird. You know, it's just like, why are we learning this in computers? So that's what's up and coming. Hopefully you've got your notes written down, and I'm going to do another video on innovation diffusion theory. I may split that one into 2. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let me get this little tool thing up. Have a good one.